This week, we're going to do something entirely different here in the Coaching Corner. We're going to have a casting director with us. Now, as you know, here on the Virtual Channel Network, we do have one of our menus is for inside casting stories. So every week you can visit the casting directors there. But we thought we'd bring a casting director in and get things from an actor's point of view and what we expect of the casting director. And joining us, Chadwick Struck. Casting director, producer, acting coach. I mean, you're doing everything these days. Where are you from and how did you get started?
I'm from Illinois, just outside of Chicago suburbs, northwest suburbs. I've been in Los Angeles for about 13 years. By the end of this year, it'll be, 2011 will be completed 13 years. I was very fortunate as a college student to work for Junie Lowry Johnson Casting.
Oh, yeah.
Who does a lot of the bigger TV and, at the time I was working on the Star Trek, TV shows and, got to watch and see all the other, projects that she was working on. So it was really great to see a massive office, really doing good work, quality work, and moving at a TV efficiency.
What was it that you learned working in Junie Lowry's office?
I just think it was a very rigid office, a top-tier office, and they moved at a pace that was very efficient, and the good actors were always coming in on the good shows. So it was a good learning curve to understand quality actors, in a very good office. So it conditioned me to understand a path and a way to remember where I worked. And while working with Junie on the Star Trek shows, it was classically trained actors. So I was thrown into a very formulaic, crafty experience where we were looking for classically trained actors in Los Angeles. So, there's a lot of charisma and a lot of, hip people that come to town, but the classically trained performer is, it's nice to know that pool and know who has.
You know what I found? That classically trained British actors always work well for futuristic genres like Star Wars and Star Trek, of course, and Nazi films. Alec Guinness played the part of Hitler, and they don't affect any kind of a German accent. It's hello, welcome to my bunker. Would you like some tea? And perhaps we could go into the other room and shoot some people. And American audiences buy that, whereas if an American actor does that, it never works.
The way that they speak is very articulate, and the words resonate, the language has precedence, and when it's spoken articulately, you can, hear that language and know that it's going to mean something. They're often referring to, previous episodes or even the first, Star Trek series up to, Enterprise. With the chronological events going back and forth, traveling on time and space.
Okay, so back to the early years of Chadwick Struck. You worked with Lieberman Hirschfield and working with Mark and Meg. What did you learn from that?
That was a brief experience. It was, an experience to work in an office that I think was doing like 12 pilots or something, crazy at the time, and they had a very big office as far as, other casting directors working for Mark and Meg. So it was just a job. It was the production team that had worked on worked on Seinfeld.
Typically, what would you say your job description with them would have been?
Basically staying out of the way and being in the right place at the right time and anticipating, things to make the procedure work well. Calling out appointments. Making sure that, anything that, paperwork and everything that I needed to take care of was prim and proper for them. Just very strong support. And, when I say stay out of the way, when an office is working on a great deal of work, it's often, a great learning experience to pay attention to what's going on, but purely stay out of the way because they're moving fast and there's a purpose in which, each casting director, the way they work. So you don't want to get in the way of what they're doing.
Let me put you on the spot. Do you think there are certain casting directors that have favorite agencies that they work with and they don't even bother going to the breakdown?
I think I've been fortunate to work in a process where, it's always a massive attack and a lot of work. And I think the people that I worked for trained me well to definitely not have a preference, definitely open up all the packages, be available for all calls. Know that the next special person could be from any agency, So I think the companies that I work for were bigger companies, and I think they're successful in the sense that they are open and available. But there's a tendency to use actors over and over again just because they're doing well, and certain actors are at certain agencies, and sometimes it's specialized with the agents that you're speaking with because they know what you're working on, either the film or the TV show, and those truthful agents are the people that you would speak to. But I don't think there's any kind of limitation to, trying to keep people out. Definitely not that.
How many submissions do you get into a casting office today? Do you personally get?
Good 300 to 500, something in that range.
When you say 300 to 500, are you talking electronic or hard copy or both?
Well, I mean, more so nowadays, as of recent, the last couple projects I've worked on have been a little bit thriftier in budget, and people have a tendency to just do electronic submissions. But when you work on a bigger film, say a studio project or a network television show, you're going to see a ton of hard copy submissions and electronic submissions, but it definitely is swaying more to the electronic way. Some of the smaller companies will just submit electronically and make sure that they get on the phone and submit properly, but some of the bigger companies will still do the traditional submission to get the headshots over there, depending on the budget in which you're working on.
Now, if your breakdown says electronic submissions only, and you still get hard copy submissions, do you kick those to the curb, or do you bother to open those, or what?
Yeah, absolutely open everything.
You're not like pissed off and say, hey, yeah, we said electronic only.
No. The only reason I would do electronic only is because I work off of thrifty budgets from time to time. So I truly do care about the actors and the success of them. And financial and emotional success are a huge help to an actor in succeeding. So I just try to save people money for the most part. That's the reason I would do electronic only, not because I'm in any kind of position of status or trying to make it tough for anybody.
Oh, sure, but it's also appreciated by actors.
I mean, you just want resources. You want to be able to pull from those resources. I'm fortunate that I do workshops around town, and I occasionally teach classes around town as well. I go to some of the bigger schools. I'm fortunate to be at your school from time to time. And I think, just having a radar for who's out there and knowing the usual suspects and being, 13 years in the business kind of gets you in a nice place. I think the second you stop going out and seeing plays, stand-up comedy, and going to workshops and entertaining those ideas, I think that's when you start falling behind the trend and what's going on. So
many actors are shut out, but when you get a casting director like yourself that's so generous.
I don't really think of it as generous. I really try to make it feel like an even exchange when I leave. I feel guilty if I feel like I didn't contribute or have enough word in the experience, and I kind of just sit there. I don't like to come in and over preach or try to act like I'm somebody of some supreme intellectual capital or something that means something. I'm out there, working with everybody. Without actors, I wouldn't be employed.
We've got a lot more to cover, but we're going to have you come back next week. I hope you're willing to do that. We got to talk about things like, well, from the actor's side of it. Normally what we hear is what the casting director wants to see. We want to find out what us actors like to see when we go into the casting office. We'll find that out next time. R.J. Adams along with Chadwick Struck. We will see you next week here on the Coaching Corner.